Hey guys, welcome back to Homebrew Wednesday. This is number 3 for me. Now if you watched last week's episode, we went over the equipment that we would need to start brewing beer in our own home. This week I figured enough talk, let's brew. If you remember, there are 4 ways you can make beer in your own home. There's the kit, the partial extract, the mini mash, and the all grain. Alright, now what I have right here is the first method. Alright, it's the easiest and consequently the cheapest method, but it doesn't take a lot of time. This is a Cooper's brand Australian lager beer kit. Now the label says beer kit hopped malt concentrate. Alright, that means the bittering hops are already in the can. All you have to do is just buy this. You don't have to buy the hops, worry about having some huge pot to boil the water in, timers, thermometers, all that stuff. Alright, now most everything you need is in this kit. Alright, you take the label off, or the lid off, and you have your packet of yeast. This is an ale yeast, and comes with instructions. Even if you're watching this video, I highly recommend that you read the instructions and keep them aside just in case. Alright. Now, some of the things we're going to need besides this kit is we're going to need 2 pounds of corn sugar, or dextrose. Okay, this is a light powdery sugar, kind of like the confectioner's sugar your grandmother uses for baking. Okay, this method is called kit and kilo. All you need is 1 kit and a kilogram of sugar. Now what I do, besides the kit and the kilo, is I also add 1 pound of dry malt extract. Okay, this is a liquid malt extract. This is a dry malt. It's the same thing. It's just when they make it, they dehydrate this more, so it's a fine powder, kind of just like the corn sugar, but a different color. Now, the things that we're going to need today is we're going to need our fermenting bucket, a spoon to stir things, a can opener, right? Because this stuff is very, very thick, you have to warm it up so it pours easier. So we're going to need a small pot full of boiling water, and that's already boiling, so I'll shut it off. And we're also going to need a kettle with some water on the side, leaving it on a boil. I'll show you why in just a minute. Now, we have to turn this can upside down. You can't open it from this side. You have to open it from the bottom. And we're going to place it in the hot water for 20 minutes to soften. And while it's doing that, I'm going to clean and sanitize all the equipment that I need, and we'll be right back. Alright guys, welcome back. The hopped beer kit has been soaking in hot water for 20 minutes. All of my equipment, my utensils have been sanitized, and we're ready to make beer. But first, you can't make beer and not drink beer. It's unnatural. Alright, this beer that I'm drinking here is it's a kit, a Cooper's Signature Selection Pilsner. I made it the exact same way that I'm going to show you now. 6.5% alcohol. I put it in my keg last week. Right? I don't know if you can see it, but it's decently clear. But you might not know this. Beer's not supposed to be clear. Alright, the beers that you buy from the large, unmentionable macro brews, they've run through filters, so those beers are actually clear. Alright, because of the alcohol content, I don't have any head retention. That suits me just fine. I prefer my glasses full of beer, not foam. And, a lot of guys, they're completely anal about head. That's all they think about. I, myself, personally, being practically married, not so much. Anyway, without further ado, alright, let's make some beer. I'm going to move the camera so you guys can see what I'm doing. Be right back. Okay guys, so I've moved the camera Alright, I hope you can see this okay. Alright, everything's been cleaned and sanitized as I said. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the lid and make sure you set it down upside down or we'll have to re-sanitize it. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our dried ingredients to the bucket with no water. Now the reason we add them before water is the dried malt extract is very susceptible to moisture. The slightest bit of humidity that's in the air and the dried powder turns into a sticky, dewy, doughy type material. So what we're going to do is first we will add our dextrose. Okay, here's the first pound. The second pound. Alright. Now I want to emphasize that as far as dry ingredients, this is as far as you need to go. You don't have to add anything else because this method is called kit and kilo. Now we have 1 kilogram of dextrose or corn sugar in the bucket, but as I said before, I like to add the dry malt extract anyway. And reasoning behind that is if I wanted a beer that's only 5% alcohol, instead of taking the time to make it, I can drive down the street 15 minutes, be home with beer that's 5% alcohol, be drinking one too. Okay, now you can't see this. I apologize, I only have one camera at the moment, and right now you guys are staring at a bucket full of sugar. But I'm opening the pre-hopped beer kit can. And now I'm pouring this in as well. As you can see, it is very thick. That's why we warm it up. Okay. Now that most of that is out of the can, this is what the small pot of boiled water is for. Okay. Pour the water into the can and then use your sanitized spoon, give it a good stir and get all the extract off the inside of the can. The stuff is very concentrated, and you want to try and get as much as possible. Okay. So we'll give the can a good stir. Alright, now the can's going to be hot. Don't forget your pot holders. And we will pour it over the lid, like so. And there you go. See? Nice and clean. Now we will take the water that the can was sitting in, which has also been sterilized since it was boiled, pour it into the mixture, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but the dry malt extract is clumping. So we take the spoon and we give it a good stir. Alright, now the dry malt extract clumps up but the clumps will go away in a few minutes of constant stirring. The stirring also helps to introduce oxygen to the wort, which that's what it's called right now. And oxygen is vital to the fermentation process. When I show you the video on the all grain, even though we're not mixing dried ingredients, after the water has been boiled and the hops have been added and we put it into the bucket, we will stir it just like this for 5 minutes to introduce or aerate the wort. And just keep stirring until you no longer see any clumps. Alright, now there's still clumps in there, so I'll just keep stirring. Alright, I can't see any more clumps. Now all we have to do is fill it up to the 5-gallon mark. Alright, give me a second while I move the camera. Be right back at you. Alright guys, now technically this is already made, but because everything is concentrated, we have to add cold water to this to the 5 US gallon mark. Alright. Now what I do personally is I fill to the 20 liter mark. I don't know if you can see it or not, but 20 liters is just a little over 5 US gallons. And the reason I do that is the Cornelius kegs that I use hold 5 US gallons. Now because of the yeast that you add, there will be a small amount of sediment left in the bottom of your bucket called trub or trube, and this slight difference between 5 gallons and 20 liters will make up for the amount that I lose, because you really don't want any sediment or excess sediment in your beer. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just adding cold water or warm water, 1 gallon at a time, and we will take a temperature reading. This is now called wort, and before we pitch our yeast, the temperature has to be between 70 and 80 degrees. Motherfucker. Okay, Now we have about 3.5 gallons of water in the bucket. I'm going to give it a good stir, take a temperature reading. So I know if I have to continue to add more cold water, I have to add some hot water, lukewarm water. You get the idea. Temperature's 85 degrees, so we will continue to add cold water. But before I add any more water, alright, last minute decision, I've just decided to add a little bit of yeast nutrient. Now this isn't necessary. If you don't have it, you don't need to use it, because the yeast that's supplied with the kit is grown, manufactured, cultured specifically for the type of wort that's in this bucket. If you have it, I would use it. Basically they're just vitamins, food. This is food grade urea and diammonium phosphate. I think what it does is adds nitrogen to the wort. Think of it as vitamins for the yeast. And if the yeast is active, if the yeast is healthy and has everything it needs to grow, this will just ensure a quick, vigorous, complete fermentation. Alright? Okay, now what I'm trying to do now is see the water level. This bucket is white. It's not exactly see-through, but they do have the calibration scales on the side. So if you have a flashlight, it's a good idea just to shine it on the inside. And I don't know if you can see that or not, but now I can see the water marks against the calibration marks quite nicely. And it looks like we need about 1 more gallon of water. Be right back. Alright, there's the 5-gallon mark, but as I said before, I'm going to fill it to the 20-liter mark. And there we go, 20 liters. Alright, now it's 20 liters. Okay. Give it a stir. Take another temperature reading. And we have 76 degrees. Perfect. Okay. Now, I have to admit, I made that kind of look easy, but I've been doing this for a while. What you might want to do, if it's your first time making a kit beer, or any of the four methods, boil about a gallon of water, pour it into the bucket, and just add cold water to it or warm water, adjusting the temperature as you go up. Practice a little, because once you mix this stuff together, if it's too hot, it's not really ruined. You just have to wait to pitch your yeast. And if you have to wait to pitch your yeast, you have to wait to make the beer. And if you have to wait to make the beer, brother, you have to wait to drink the beer. We can't have that. Okay, 2 steps left in the beer making process. We have to rehydrate our yeast. Okay, some people don't do it, some people swear by it. Alright, what I'm telling you is it's a good idea to rehydrate your yeast just to see if it's still live and viable. Alright, it doesn't happen very often, but if you brew long enough, sooner or later you're going to get a bad package of yeast. Alright, now the usual way that you rehydrate yeast is to stick the yeast in a small cup of water that's heated to 100 to 104 degrees and let it sit for 15 minutes. I'm not going to use water. The yeast is meant for this wort. Alright, that's what this is called right now. So I rehydrate my yeast in this. The yeast wakes up, it starts to eat the wort. The food is already familiar to it. So when I put the rehydrated yeast into the whole batch, it already knows what it's supposed to do. Pre-programming, like Democrats. Now, okay, I'm going to grab the yeast packet and I'll be right back. Alright guys, I've rehydrated the yeast. Okay, and what I did was I took a glass bowl, cleaned and sanitized. I filled it up with some of the wort from our bucket, warmed it up to 100 degrees exactly. I put my yeast in it. Don't stir it or nothing, just sprinkle it on top, cover it with saran wrap, let it sit for 15 minutes. And I don't know if you can see this or not, I'll bring it a little closer for you. What happens is the yeast gets wet, drops down to the bottom. As it wakes up, it floats back to the top and creates this bubbly, foamy mixture. Alright, anybody who bakes their own bread has seen this before. Kind of smells like oatmeal. Alright, so now we know that the yeast is viable. So all we have to do now, very carefully take the plastic off. Okay. Use a fork or a spoon, clean and sanitized. Okay, it's very important. You have to sanitize everything that touches your wort. Give it a good stir. Alright, the reason for stirring is it puts all the yeast in suspension. Doesn't mean there's any sludge on the bottom of the bowl. Doesn't mean everything's floating on top. Remove the lid. Remember to place it upside down always. And then we will pour or pitch the yeast into our wort. Okay. Now, beer making process is done. Snap down the lid. Fix your airlock. And we're almost done. If you purchase a 3-piece airlock like the one that I have, you will notice halfway up there is a small line inscribed on the inside of the plastic. that is your water line. Alright, you can fill this with plain tap water. Alright, some people use vodka. I mean, God forbid, it's a waste of perfectly good booze. Or what I do is I use my sanitizing solution, the iodophor. What I did was, after I sanitized the bucket and all my utensils, I just took a shot glass worth out of the bucket before I drained it. And pour it in the airlock till you get to the water line. Snap the lid on tight. And that's it. All that's left now is to put this someplace where it's not going to be disturbed. Okay, it doesn't have to be out of direct sunlight. This is not a clear plastic or see-through bucket, so the sunlight or the UV rays, which is harmful to yeast, cannot get inside. But you do have to place it someplace where the temperature is easily regulated to between 65 and 75 degrees at its hottest. Alright, now we are going to forget about this for 14 days. At the end of 14 days, if you were going to bottle it, what we would do is we would take a second bucket. We would dissolve 3/4 cup to 1 cup of dextrose, the same corn sugar that we put in the wort. We would dissolve that in a cup of warm water. Pour that in the bottom of the bucket and use our racking cane, auto siphon or hose, whatever you have. Transfer the beer from here into the second bucket, called the bottling bucket, and stir it up really well to make sure that the sugar is evenly distributed through the solution, and then we would bottle and cap. But that is another video. Okay. Now, well, so that's it. All right. I hope you enjoy the videos. All right. If you like them, please thumbs up. Alright, it only takes a second. It helps me out immensely in the ratings. The more thumbs up I get, the higher on the scale my videos go. I hope you guys enjoyed your week so far. I hope the rest of your week is just as good, even better if it can be. Alright, happy Homebrew Wednesday. I'll see you later.